He's on the pathway called Leadership Development, working on level 1, project number 2, which is, what is project number 2? It is feedback and evaluation. So this is his first speech. Then the second part of the project is to get the feedback and give another speech incorporating the feedback that you received from the first, either the same speech again or another speech. And then the third leg of this project is to be an evaluator. So you're getting it from both ends. Our speaker today will be talking about Ireland, myths and legends. And his speech is, he's going to enlighten us about how these myths and legends have moved through time and space and how they actually permeate our society today. Please welcome up our newest host member, Mr. Colin Walsh.
Madam Toastmaster, fellow Toastmaster, honored guests, and any attending leprechauns, thank you very much for having me this evening. I have to say that this is my personal experience of Ireland and the culture outside, so if yours is different, I respect that too. On arriving in America, I was amazed how much of Irish culture was here. I'm going to share something with you right now. Did you know that there is Irish soap in America? There are leprechaun breakfast cereals in America. There is Irish golden butter in America. And, not forgetting, Billy's Irish cream in America. 3 out of 4 of these are marketing myths. One of them is real. Think about it, and at the end, if I don't waste too much time, we'll find out which one was the real one. But that's a little bit of fun, but really I think when most of us talk about Irish myths and legends, we're thinking about the country. And we're thinking about giants and castles and kings and history. And actually all that's really there. I grew up with it. So this, you have a copy of this on your table so that you could actually see it in the room. This interesting pile of rocks was about 10 miles away from where the town I was born in. In some places it would be an interesting pile of rocks. If you're more into geology, it's a very interesting geological formation. In Ireland, this is the Giant's Causeway. Finn McColl, an ancient Irish giant, was upset with a rival in Scotland, so he built a causeway, a series of stepping stones to Scotland, because he was going to beat up his Scottish rival. Now, with perspective, by the time he got to Scotland, his opponent was substantially larger than Finn, so he retreated back to Ireland, pulling up the road behind him, which is why only the remains are left. That myth makes this one of the top tourist attractions in Ireland. So you can see why our marketing friends like Irish myths. Moving on to castles. This is Carrickfergus, the town I grew up in until I was 18 years old. Actually, the settlement there dates back to about 7000 BC, but there's not much really visible of that period. There's a lot from the medieval period. This is a 12th century castle, and right underneath the castle, before you get to the harbour, you'll notice a very large rock. In Irish, Carrick means rock, so this is part of how Carrickfergus got its name. The rest of the name comes from a very famous Irish king, and as you flip the page, this is Fergus Maw. In 510, Fergus was a very, very lucky king. Very important, but not very lucky. Because in a storm, his boat crashed on that rock we saw earlier, and he drowned. But he did get to prosperity, the Fergus part of Carrickfergus. Carrickfergus means the Rock of Fergus. And so it was associated with one of the most famous Irish kings. We will come back to Fergus later, again, if I don't get my timing wrong. The next king we talk about in Carrick, and probably in the local culture, this is the most important king from the north of Ireland. He's actually Dutch. This is William of Orange. It's 1690, and he's William III of England. He's the Prince of Orange. In the local culture of Ireland, where I grew up and spent the first 18 years of my life, this character is really important today. Right? Today he is King Billy. He is recognized by the Unionist Protestant population of the north of Ireland as the defender of the faith, who came over in 1690 and 1691 to defend Protestantism against the evil King James and the Catholics in the south. And he did win several very important battles. He was actually quite a good general. Interestingly enough, though, he actually was just there for tactical reasons. This was part of a 7-year international war where the Dutch, the English, the German principalities, and actually the Pope were in opposition to Louis XIV of France. So in the culture I grew up in for nearly 20 years, I'm being told this guy is anti-papist, and he was allied with the Pope. Okay? Which is kind of funny, but it is a real political issue. The dark side of this is that the sectarian divisions in this period played right out into the time that I lived there. Nearly 3,500 people died in the 20 years I lived there. Which was actually, obviously, very, very sad. But it sounds a little bit localized all the same. But it really is today, actually right now, completely relevant to the biggest issue going on in Europe. Biggest issue in Europe right now is Britain is leaving the EU. And how is that going to work? Theresa May is actually working with the minority in Parliament. She's reliant on the Democratic Unionist parties, who see themselves as the cultural descendants of William of Orange, defending Ireland from the Catholics in the south. And the Irish border is a major factor in that discussion. Even today, it's influencing all of Europe. And it's a myth. Going back to, you could actually look at, this is a real demographic chart of where in Ireland voted to leave the EU. A tiny little section of the northeast of Ireland. Now, it'd be very easy to say, well, that's just those crazy loyalists who are doing this stuff. But remember we talked about Fergus. Fergus, I was very careful to say, was a very powerful Gaelic king, but he wasn't actually an Irish king. Fergus had a kingdom, which actually, we look across the next page, was on the west coast of Scotland and the northeast coast of Ireland. And if you compare those two charts, the area of Ireland, which was part of Fergus's kingdom, is exactly the same part of Ireland which 1,500 years after Fergus died on that rock, voted to leave the EU. And that giant Finn McCall I talked about, he was trying to build that causeway between that little bit of that kingdom. It shows you the shadow effect this myths and legends have in the real world today. So, enjoy your myths. Does anyone know what the real answer is here, which is the real product?
The drink.
That is a good guess, but Bailey's was invented in London about 50 years ago. The real product is this one. Butter. And I have some samples. So we should enjoy and be entertained by our myths, but we shouldn't forget how powerful they are. Thank you very much.